She's both fearless and fierce producer with many impressive credits to her name. Children of God with director Alfonso Cuarón, and The Paperboy, The Butler, and U.S. versus Billie Holiday with director Lee Daniel. She's funny, she's sassy, and she's a friend. Let's welcome producer Hilary Shor. There she is.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Hilary.
I just have to warn everyone, my two beloved poodle mixes are in the distance. This is the world of Zoom. So if you hear barking, it's a squirrel going by. So forgive us all in this pandemic reality. I'm looking forward to joining Tova in the beautiful New York Film Academy offices next year.
So Hilary, we love the movie.
Thank you.
We really, I was in it from beginning to the end, and it was a long movie, but I was really into it.
Yeah.
And we want to ask you questions about it, but first I want to start with, how did you start in the business?
Wow. It's funny because, I try to mentor a lot of people, and I had a little thing at my house a couple of weeks ago with some young women who are starting off in the business. And I really have to remember who that girl was who came to town in the late 80s with a Fiat convertible used car that kept breaking down. Yes. 20 pounds overweight with adolescent acne and, not such great hair, who somehow just was like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. It's like somehow I thought that I could, make my way into the business, and not having come from, generational ancestry, as many people who live in Los Angeles. And I was very naive. I had a degree from a fancy women's college back east, and was very literary. And I just started, we called them secretaries back then. I was a secretary. I wasn't an assistant, as I tell all the millennials. Honey, I was a secretary. It was the olden days. And there was this thing called carbon paper. You barely had computers. It was really interesting. And I probably was the worst secretary / assistant, whatever you, coffee getter, ever in the history of.
I was.
Probably you were, because you're Israeli, that adds another to it. And I literally, I went to graduate school at the Annenberg School of Communications down at USC, and trust me, it was not the school that all these people, paid $500,000 to get into. It was a very fine school, but it was like I would drive downtown in fear of my life. And the classes were mostly at night, and during the day, I managed, probably after sitting here for 6 months at the Brentwood Country Mart, being depressed, got a job working in a literary agency, and then slowly kind of made my way and was made an agent literally 1 year to the day of my starting working. Didn't know what's very similar to my becoming a producer. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I was well read, very well educated, had a mouth on me, which you clearly, my viewers can always see. And, it was just kind of ballsy, and I didn't know what I didn't know, but I had what I feel is the most important quality for someone who's trying to be in the business, which was social intelligence, and as well as an empathy. And I think that those two things, really set me on my way. Now, I certainly screwed it up a little bit, along the journey with, bad behavior, as we all had in the 80s. And I just kind of wended my way through the, the reality of what the business was back then, which of course is very different from what it is now. I don't know if it's better or worse. We have no studio movies, but we have streamers. So it's all good. And so as I said, I started in an agency, which I think is a great training ground for people who want to be on my side of the business, with really understanding what things work as now I always say to people, honey, we didn't have the internet back then. You know, I had to memorize Paramount's phone number. I had to go to the library. I had, you know, that's how you did research. So I literally, for years, and I think that's how I met you, Tova, I would sit down and have a lunch meeting, pray to God that that person was going to pay for lunch, and say, who should I meet? You know, and I had a little notebook and I would write down, I should meet Tova, I should meet this one, I should meet that one. And I would have the balls to call people up and network. And that was really, you know, literally for the first three to 5 years of my life, I was really mentored and drawn down the river with goodwill of people who said, okay, I see this girl, there's something there, I'm going to help her. And that it was very play it forward. And that's why I feel it's very important as the elder now to do the same thing.
So let me ask you, but then didn't you move to New York, and then didn't you move to some swinging London at a certain point?
Yes, I had the opportunity to partner with a company based out of London, and I moved to New York, um, only to, you know, have the financial world collapse in the middle of that. But I moved to New York in like, I don't know, 96 maybe, 96, 97, something like that, and was one of the first producers. It was a management and a production company, and I partnered with them. And I was really able to be one of the first producers or the first, you know, people who saw talent who accessed London at a time when no one else was really doing it. So, you know, 10, 12, 15 years later, all of a sudden all the agents are flying over there. But I was very lucky because I was able to live in the UK. I did Children of Men in the UK during that experience, which was obviously a very big movie. I lived over there for 18 months between prep and shooting. The olden days where we shot for 6
Can I
months.
ask you, how did that movie come about? This is a big director, big movie.
It was, yeah. I optioned the book and held
Really?
on. Yeah, I optioned the book. It was very difficult piece of material to get. P.D. James is a very well known, kind of revered author over there. This particular book was a pretty much a one of in terms of the tone. She's very much known as a writer of, you know, almost detective things. And I've spent probably 6 months. I read the book. I just had my daughter. And if you read the book, which Alfonso very much in the course of our developing the script changed a lot of it. I mean, the core of it is there, which is that, you know, we are not reproducing. And guess what? We were
Yeah,
right.
reproducing.
You know, guess what? You know, it's really, you know, now every time I often am like listening to CNN and I hear them referring, like the movie Children of Men, which she had read some learned tome and wrote this book as a very strong, I believe she's Catholic, but let's say a very strong Christian, and her version of it, obviously the five fishes and, you know, all of that. And I flew over to London 2 or 3 times, and my partner and I met with her and met with the literary agent. It was very difficult. So we optioned it. And then we, you know, I tried to set it up, which nobody wanted. And of course, the irony is that years later, people were like, well, why didn't you bring it to me? And I was like, well, I did, you know, I did Harvey. I
Yeah.
did so. Um, yeah, it was crazy. And it just, you know,
So
it
let
was,
me ask you something, because
I think I worked on it.
where did you get the fund to option the book? Or if because if she's English, probably it wasn't as expensive as for American.
No, it wasn't. I mean, ultimately, we optioned it so many, you know, we renewed and we renewed. That ultimately, we had to, you know, the company that I had set it up with, we actually bought the underlying rights. You know, that's how much we believed in it, because it took 9 years. You know, that's a long time of like renewing it year after year after year, or every two. You know, I think the first one was 2 years. But my English partner funded that, and you know, bravo for him, because it was you
Yeah.
know,
So it's within a company. It wasn't just you alone. Yeah. Which is easier because that's the funds come in.
That's the difficulty now as an independent producer.
Yeah.
Speaking in day, it's a very, it's all on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah. What about what was the connection of that company to Phil Collins?
My business partner at the time had a music management and music publishing company, and he managed Phil and he managed Genesis and had a huge roster of publishing people. And so part of my business was that I would help try to support Phil to access into the film world. And from that, came Tarzan and Brother Bear, and then Tarzan the musical. So that's really all it was.
And you met his daughter, Lily Collins.
Yes, Lily is
now a close friends and adorable.
Since she was like 3 years old.
So, and then you came back from London, and that's where I really saw you kind of on the scene, on really full-time kind of a producer. You were also a manager at the time, because you're very good at that. You're very good at managing people and mentoring people, young people.
Yeah. I think, I always refer to myself as the talent whisperer. And I think that the producer, listen, I'm always trying to explain what a producer is, and for all of the people who are listening in, there are many different roles that being a producer is. And very few people, although a lot of men that I've worked with, think that they can do it all. They're the great auteur, they have the sensibility, they have the money, and usually, quite frankly, one believes that you can do it all. It's a 360, but it does take a village, and everybody has, I believe, a role in bringing a film or a television show to fruition. So I know that in addition to kind of having a sense of material, that one of my great skills is a skill with talent. And that includes talent with directors and, cinematographers and actors. And I think I'm one of the few producers who very early on really sees actors and has empathy for them and loves them and understands how difficult what they do is to, I always say, it's, you sit there and these actors have to, be in the moment, do the work. There's usually a political dynamic of, make the director happy, make the producer happy. Then all of a sudden the studio comes in and visits, and, that's a whole thing. Yeah, it's something that, they sit there and go, who do I serve? And what you really have to do is protect them and create an environment where they don't need to worry about taking care of the political environment. They just need to worry about doing the work.
Right.
And
go ahead.
You have to be kind of egoless as a producer.
Yeah. The dogs agree every time you say something really.
Hey, they're enjoying the score.
But you are actually quite famous in the fact that you keep relationship with all the people that you work with, the directors, the writers, the actors. And I always wonder how you do that, because, the talent always flies around, always going from movie to movie, from set to set. They're gone for months. They get married, they get divorced, get married, get divorced. I wasn't able to keep up with those relationships. You somehow keep that all going. How?
I think it's a combination of things. I think that I love them. I really see them. I think that, and I've been told that, and thank you, because I regard that as a compliment. I think that when I work on a film, the actors really know, and the directors really know that I'm in their corner and I'm there for them. And I think that's pretty unusual. A lot of times the producers are worried.
Play the studio game.
They're playing the studio game, or they're playing the money game, or they're, men who have ulterior motive. I mean, not that it's ever been that way on any film I've worked on,
Right.
but they have, these actors and actresses have experiences
Yeah.
where they, don't feel safe. And I think that I always say talented actors are instinctual. I mean, they have an inner barometer and awareness, and that's what makes them great actors. So they would naturally really be able to tell who who you are, and if you're genuine, and if you're authentic, and if they can feel safe with you. And I think across the board, they know that I'm 100% there for them, because if they do their job well and they feel good and they know I'm there to protect them, which I 100% am, that I'm protecting the movie. And I think that, not that there aren't other producers like that, but I do know that that's a particular alchemy that I feel, and it's genuine. They know who's bullshitting, and they know who is, and by the way, it's like baby, baby, oh baby. There's a whole world for that. And that's a side of the business that's great and very productive, but that's not what I bring into the equation. And I think that the fact that I'm authentic and trustworthy and am absolutely there as we are shooting, my role is to protect the environment.
And
Protect
can I say that you do it always with hilarity? I
always.
call you Hilary the Hilarious. So, I mean, you're trying to be really proper here, but I know you're hilarious. And everybody else is hilarious, so they want to be around you also. So let's go to the next sketch of yours.
Okay.
You have now done 3 movies with Lee Daniel. He must like you. He must really, really like you.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how and when did you bond so strongly? In other words, I want to know, what kind of voodoo did you perform on him?
Well, Lee and I have known each other for probably 30 years.
Really?
He was a manager and I was an agent, and he would always try to sign my clients, behind my back, and we wobbled, and we went across swords, and I mean, I was like, I hate that guy. He was like, I hate that bitch, that sort of thing. And later, he was suggested for a film that, unfortunately, I'd optioned a book and developed a script that was very dark. I mean, we talk all the time about how we could never get that made today. There was a moment in time where we thought we could get it going about, I don't know, 15 years ago, when we came together about 15 years ago. And maybe it was 12, I can't remember. And now it's so dark and so politically incorrect in this cancel culture that it could never be made. But it was a magnificent piece of material. And we kind of met kind of begrudgingly at Bergdorf's. I think I paid, which was horrifying to me. And it was like, I said that to him about a year ago. I said, how could we have had lunch at Bergdorf's upstairs? It's like such an odd place for us to, we were both living in New York at the time. And so in the course of it, we reconnected, and kind of, the thing that Lee and I have that really bonds us is humor. I mean, we're of the same era. We kind of we've survived, and a lot of us aren't here anymore. And, we have humor. I mean, there's just sometimes on set where he'll look at me and I'll look at him, and I'll go, we know what the other person is seeing, and we, break into laughter. And I think that that's often sets the tone on a set where everybody's very tense and we're laughing hysterical. I mean, I know you follow me on Instagram. There's a video that I reposted like a year ago. I think it was like in October or November of 2019, when we were making Billie Holiday. And all of a sudden it's this very complicated scene. It's the scene where in the train station where she comes back from being in prison. And, Lee loves music. So in between shots, he'll turn, we'll turn on the music. And all of a sudden I started to dance, and I'm like boogieing into the crowd scene. And, the AD's dancing with me, and the cast is dancing with me. And, he's screaming in the background, "Go, Hill, go." I mean, I don't know a lot of other producers who are as self-deprecating and allow themselves to be the butt of the jokes, and vice versa. We just have that, we're bonded by humor. And I honestly think that's what keeps us going. Hopefully we're going to do
Unbelievable. I mean, you did 3 movies together, The
and
Paperboy.
more.
And of course, you are keeping relationship with Nicole Kidman, and then you have the butler, and you're keeping relation with Dennis Strong, the writer, and you're not discriminating. You go with the writers, the
Yeah.
performance, the directors, equal opportunity kind of girl. Yeah.
Cinematographers, Chivo, Emmanuel Lubinski is, someone of my heart.
We
Yeah,
are somehow related, by the way.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I think that, as I said, I think that talent instinctually knows who's safe and who's a safe resource. And people have said that to me. Nicole had somebody who worked with her and Nicole is, I can't say enough about her. She's just extraordinary as a human being and as an artist, such great discipline. So extraordinary. And, there was something happened on the film set where our crew member was, whatever. And I was rushed back from set to her, she's calling me as I'm, rushing there. And she knew who was going to take care of it for her.
Right.
And there was a little blue discussion that I had with the crew member. But as people have said to me that, when you're an actor of that level, how can you gather relationships with just the producers? Because I do always say to people, we are the highest on the food chain until it gets made, and then we're nothing. You have to have a real sense of self and a sense of, you got to take the piss out of yourself because we are just the linchpin to what really needs to be done. And they said to me, Nicole doesn't keep relationships with producers. I mean, there's some, but in general, no. And I think because she knew that I was 100% devoted to her, and I can't say enough about her. She's just extraordinary. I just watched The Undoing again a couple of weeks ago. Just, that performance
She's just good in everything. I mean,
yeah, and just the most professional. I mean, I would always say she can read a call sheet better than I can, and the ADs can. I mean, this girl knows what.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The movie is, I mean, it's really hold no bars, you know what I mean? It's just raw and it's real in portraying her life and her struggles. And
Extraordinary. I mean, I can't say enough about Andra Day. I mean, this girl is, I don't even know what else she could be cast in because she has no boundaries, no racial boundaries, no gender boundaries. She's just extraordinary
unbelievable.
and an incredible girl.
Yeah,
Absolutely was Billie Holiday.
yeah.
We would call her Lady, she was so disciplined, very methody, really in character. It's not like we were sitting around hanging out on the set, similar to Nicole in that, you have their safe space, they go into their trailer, they're always focusing, they're always doing the work. And that's what that role required. She prepared for that for almost a year, worked very hard with
How
her.
come you chose her?
Well, honestly, we were testing, all of the obvious choices. And I remember when Lee said, there's this girl, Andra Day, I'm like, a singer? What are you, crazy? Um, and of course, we then tested her, and there was just no one else. Absolutely no one else. Once he has the most extraordinary sensibility and ability to find talent and then bring the best out of them. And once we saw her screen test, there was just never anyone else. That was it.
Well, Lee was a casting director one time, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
Mhm. Yeah.
So they
Liz,
said to
he
me,
was partnered with Billy Hopkins, who, was, I always say to Billy, who's cast a couple of films for me, when I was an agent and Billy was a casting director, the casting director, he wouldn't fucking return my calls. I mean, it was, I always tease him about that. Now he's like family, but at the time it was like, I can't get Billy Hopkins to call me back.
well, I think you should really torture him now.
Oh, I do, honey. We laugh all the time. We've been
Uh,
on vacation together. We've gone on vacation, with Lee at times, and we laugh all the time. You gotta laugh, honey. That's all you got. You got nothing else.
and when I have laughs, people, you should go to her website, to her Instagram, and you just fun.
What
Unbelievable.
Joe is talking about is during COVID, during the lockdown, I live alone except for my two poodles, and I decided to every day get dressed, put on, an outfit. I used to live in New York, which was always great because there were always things to do, which is, it was my glamorous life. And she's gone. And I would then take a picture. I would get all fatutzed, and I would then take a picture in front of I have this very large mirror in my living room, and I would do a proof of life photo. And so I would do this proof of life and, say something pithy as you were. And now I kind of felt like people were bored of it. So I stopped it. And I can't tell you, every day somebody texted me and said, when are you going to, start the proof of life? I was like,
Yeah. But not only that, you have all those group of people that come over and they have fun, and Rebel Wilson and Lily Wink and all those girls, and people come and go, and everything gets filmed, and it's like fantastic.
Well, I really started about 4 or 5 years ago. I started doing these, sorry guys, girls' dinners. And I would, I started doing them in restaurants, and then I started doing them in my home on a monthly basis, where I would gather, on the short end, I think it was like, 10 people. And then there was at one point I had 40 people in my home. And it was really, my assistant's here. It was really an opportunity for, maybe it was like a big agent's assistant and the most famous publicist in the business, and a movie star and a casting director and an agent and a manager and, a nobody. And it was really, and a publicist or a fashion person, and this strange mix of just people who would have an opportunity, never have an opportunity to go to lunch with someone. And they would all meet at my house, and it was kind of magical. Unfortunately, during COVID, we haven't been able to do that, but we're going to start it up. I'm vaccinated. Are you vaccinated, babe?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I can be invited. But the entire students that are on here are going to come now, move to LA to come to your dinners.
Okay. Well, they can. They can. I found out what a DM is, so they can DM me, maybe.
You found out now. Mike, do we have questions from the students?
We do. We have a question from Miguel. Miguel, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What is your question for Hilary?
Hi, Miguel.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. First of all, congratulations on your nomination. I'm sure you're gonna do great.
We're very, very excited. I really, it's not about the awards, it's about the work, but I would be very, very pleased if it went her way. She deserves all the good in the world.
Yeah, I'm very happy for all of you. I can't wait to watch all of you at the Oscars. My question would be, what suggestion would you give to new directors, or per se, new wannabe directors, screenwriters, producers, once they want to start on the filmmaking industry in the US? Because I come from Mexico, and here the industry is a little different than it's there.
Well, obviously, I work with all the crazy Mexicans, Alfonso and Chivo, and I know all of the three amigos, that whole group. I think the extraordinary thing for a young, director, writer at this stage is that you have these mediums that you can utilize. You have YouTube, you have the ability to self-create in a way that, is complete. There's digital, there's cameras that cost nothing. You can do a film for pennies on the dollar and manage to get it launched with you know, YouTube or sending it in an, you know, all of these, you know, Facebook, all these aspects of the ability to get something seen. I mean, I saw something like last year where somebody had literally lit an entire film on iPads. I mean, it's extraordinary, you know, very different than, you know, when Tova and I came up. So I think that it's about being self-starting. Have the courage to start small. I mean, wasn't there something at Sundance a couple of years ago that was literally recorded on a iPhone?
Yeah.
Start small, do a short, do something for 15 minutes, then do a 30-minute one, then do 45, you know, and just to have a narrative and tell a story. It's really about your ability to tell a story in a way that you can connect with an audience. And I always say, what is your truth? I mean, when I optioned Children of Men, I had just had my daughter. It was this insane wellspring of emotion that I hormonally felt for years. I mean, I was crying. You know, I'd see a Kleenex commercial, I'd start crying. And so that spoke to me. And my passion for motherhood and the desire for the environment to be cured, which obviously isn't working so well, is what drove me for years and years. It took me 9 years to get that fucking movie made. And then Universal fucked up the release. But that's another seminar, darling. And you know, I think that's, what do you have passion for? What is personal to you? Ergo, what is, you know, significantly, I'm not going to say easier, but, you know, drives you, and start there. I mean, the great thing is that you have in your hands, and you don't really know it, the ability to create. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. Get your friends, get out there, make it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, whatever it is, but tell a story.
Right. Thank you very much. It was very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, Miguel.
We have a question here from Jasmine Williams. Jasmine, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What's your question for Hilary?
Hi, Jasmine.
Hi. I did not expect them to call me. Okay. So, so my first question was, how did you develop the producer to director relationship with Lee Daniels? I mean, you kind of explained that as far as you guys' relationship 30 years ago when he was a manager and you were an agent. So my second question was, how does like a young woman like myself, a filmmaker, writer, director, seek out certain mentorships that could be as valuable as yours?
Well, I think, you know, it's all about, it's obviously, listen, it's all about connection. And unfortunately, we're in a world right now where it isn't easy to connect, you know, except over, you know, a situation like this. I think that whether it's you're in film school, other people who have passion, it's not about necessarily somebody who's older. And, you know, although I'm happy you can connect with me and I'm happy to read something, you know, anything like that. But I think it's really about, you know, when you ask about me, it's like we matched on material and empathy. And as I said, humor. And there's things that he does like television that I have nothing to do with. But, you know, we do films together, and that's how our relationship evolved. And it was really materially based. And I think that it's very much about, you know, getting yourself in front of people. And as with Miguel, it's all right. You now have the opportunity to be self-realizing in that you can do something that's 10 minutes long and tell a narrative and get it out there in an extraordinary way. Enter film festivals. You know, there's so many digital opportunities now. It's extraordinary. I mean, you know, honey, in the olden days, it was, you know, much more transactional and a real, you know, A plus B equals C. It's not like that anymore. And you guys are lucky. You're really lucky.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I really enjoyed it.
Did I answer your question, Jasmine? I'm not sure, but I tried.
Looks like we lost Jasmine, but we do have a question here from Howard Campbell. Howard, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What is your question for Hilary?
Hi, Howard.
Hi, Hilary. So my question you kind of answered a little. It was, do you have any advice for like independent producers that are trying to break into the industry? So
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, and bravo for you for having the balls to want to be a producer. It's the toughest job. And it is also, as I said, the one where, you know, unfortunately, we're the unsung heroes, and you have to accept that in this world, you know, both financially and emotionally. And I think it's about bonding with talent, you know, find yourself directors and writers that you have a simpatico with, and you want to tell the same stories. I mean, it's all of tell me a story. Tell me something, you know, that's interesting. Do you want to tell a story about your high school experiences, your parents' divorce, you know, your brother beat you up? I don't fucking know. But, you know, find and bond with talent. And I always say, find your merry band of players and, you know, work within the passions that you all have. You know, you're not going to be able to pick up the phone to Alfonso Cuarón. You know, you're not going to pick up the phone to, you know, Martin Scorsese. But, you know, this is, you know, the generations move on and interests move on. And I mean, who the fuck thought TikTok would happen? I mean, my God, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that as students, you know, you have people that want to be writers, you have people that want to directors, you have people that want to be actors. And why don't you start there? I mean, you know, I remember when Audrey Plaza was here, and she said at the beginning, you know, it was all about, oh, I need to get an agent, I need to get this, I need to get that. And it's only after she went to Citizen Brigade or something that she find her community. And through that community, you know, somebody told her, you know, here is somebody that I know that is a manager, here's that. But that community really also helped her develop and do things right. And in time she found everything that she needed instead of chasing it from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most beautiful thing, you know, I have all these friends who, you know, these kids did a movie or a play, or they were in the Groundlings together, and that's the support that you need.
Right.
You know, you cannot do this alone. So, you know, artist to artist, you know, friend to friend, human being to human being, a community is a beautiful way of saying it. And you can't do it. As I've said many times, and I said it earlier, that it takes a village. And, you know, there's many little, you know, huts in the village.
Right.
Barbecues.
Yeah. Yeah. Make friends with assistants. The assistants are going to become
always good for the assistants, and they're all running the town now.
yes.
Says, oh my God, you were so nice to me. I'm like, I don't even remember who the fuck you are. But you know, you were always so nice to me when I was answering the phone for some big shot. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm glad I was nice to you, honey.
You know, it happens to me all the time too. And people really remember that. And you have to be nice to everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't serve you otherwise. You know, it's we're all very fragilely on in this place. And, you know, and that's a whole nother seminar that we can do. Just, I find the whole counterculture that we're experiencing, cancel culture, you know, very, very frightening right now. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be called to the carpet with the stuff I might have done in my 20s.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I only heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, honey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived it.
Next question.
We have a question here from one of our MFA students in LA. The question is, would you say it's easier to produce a film with many producers attached or with fewer?
Oh, I mean, it depends on who it is. You know, I've done movies with, you know, they're always fighting. There's always infighting in with the producers. I mean, it just is like a cliche because it's a power struggle. And I always say, what do you know, there is no ultimate force, particularly in independent movies. You know, the olden days where you had a Jerry Bruckheimer or someone who was a standalone producer, it's gone. So now it is an amalgam of many people who bring many different things. You've got the line producer, you've got the creative producer, you've got the person who's, you know, found the money and is overseeing, you know, and in the journey of making a film, each one of us will step forward in our moment of, let's say, the PowerPoint, the power plays, and it's all illusional. It is a mosaic of a skill set. And if you're smart, and I can't necessarily say that I always, it took me a while to learn this, is, keep your ego in check, and, keep your approach to serving the picture, serve the film. If you're serving the film, you're serving yourself, and you're serving the people that you've hired or brought into it, or at times, I've been hired as a producer, somebody says, please come on and do this movie. So it's not, if you look at credits, they're usually bullshit. And they're, if you have something that has a long history, people who contractually have credits who, there are people who I will not mention on certain films that I've had who, hadn't been involved in a project for, 3, 5, 6 years, never came to set, didn't have anything to do with it, but they had the rights. And by having the rights, they got a producer credit, or, they wrote a check at some time. So everybody has their role. And one of the skills that took me a while to develop, but I've gotten, is knowing my place. I like to start at the beginning, go all the way to the end. I think that's how I, have a spiritual and emotional journey as well. So it's not necessarily the number of the people, it's the people that you're working with. And, quite often you'll see, millions of people, and, somebody will say to me, oh, so-and-so worked with you on that film. I'm like, I was there. I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Right. And I look at the credits and there's somebody's name who put in, some money, or, but in terms of the actual, like, being there and being on set and being in post, I never saw them. So everybody has their role. Have I answered your question?
There's actually a follow-up question about your experience on the United States versus Billie Holiday, asking, how did your experience producing this film compare with others that you've worked on?
Well, this was interesting. It's the first semi-music, I'm not going to call it a musical, but it's the first music-driven film that I've worked on. It was funny because the first film I ever produced was in Montreal, and then this film, 20 years later, 23, I can't remember, 20 some years later, was also in Montreal. So it was kind of a beautiful, perfect circle. And, it was really wonderful to see the period come alive. There's such a richness, very different from Children of Men, where we created the near future, which was fascinating to do that research. But with this, we were able to draw on so much historical. Obviously her life was, very interesting, and we had a lot of anecdotal information available to us, a lot of photographs, a lot of video, a lot of, video song, her singing and everything, that was great for Andra and, the production designer and the costume designer to draw on. So that was kind of a new thing for me. I hadn't really done period like that. Paperboy, I guess, was the 70s, but that's not, I was around in the 70s. So this was really, extraordinary. And the world of jazz, it was just, a very rich palette to, and, with what's going on with, the rights right now, Black Lives Matter, and how, we finally, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and my parents were very liberal, and, I was always taught to be very respectful of the civil rights movement, and it was part of my, DNA. So what I see go on in the racial playground is always, very disturbing to me. So it was really wonderful to gather this extraordinary cast of, some of the finest, talents out there. Miss Lawrence, who, is a non-binary, non-gender conforming, artist who just gave the most extraordinary performances, Miss Freddie, and to be able to be there and nurture him and watch him just, enter this world with a bang. It was great. It was really great. And, it was working with a lot of people who weren't bona fide movie stars. Like, for instance, we did on The Paperboy, or even, The Butler, where we had these extraordinary people come in and, bona fide movie stars came in. So this was really these extraordinary actors of great talent, who some of which are, household names and some are not, and watching them do work like no other. So that was really, every day was a feast in that way. It was great.
How come you shot in Montreal?
Money, the tax rebate was very, very strong there, the Quebec tax break, and also the dollar versus, and also we were recreating a period of time that the street scenes. It was very, very possible. It's a great place to shoot. Very different than when I did my first movie. Much, my first film was during the whole. I don't know if you all know, but there was a moment in time where the Quebecois were attempting to be released from, Canada. And it was, I was right there in the middle of it. And that was very, very, very unfortunate and very uncomfortable. It was very much of like the English versus the French. It was really a total waste of space and unpleasant. And this was just, everybody was very great artisans, beautiful production design, and it was great. Great food.
Lunch.
Yeah.
Oui.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Who
Yes,
else?
we do. We have a question from Benjamin. Benjamin, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What is your question for Hilary?
Hi. I have a few questions.
Okay.
You've covered a few by like listing like film like collections and like other events to go to. But I was wondering, like, what do you think you got the most out of? Like, which events for you did you feel like you had like gained the greatest experience from?
You mean which films or which
Like which like gatherings of like film events or at film collectives or
oh gosh, I don't know. I think that I think I gained the most by screwing up and picking myself up and keeping going. Literally, that's it. Making mistakes, acknowledging those mistakes, forgiving myself for making mistakes, for making boo-boos, not handling myself particularly well at times, but acknowledging and learning from them and moving on, and not carrying that energy with me, starting each day fresh. It's not like I can say, oh, I went to, this bar every night and, met all these great people. I think that, I was lucky enough to be able to be seen by certain people who saw something in young Hilary and said, okay, she's a little fucked up, but there's something there, and helped me along the road. So I think that, as I said, we have a social business. When you have my job, that may not necessarily be what you need to do as a director or a writer. You just need to do the work. But we live in a world that has very, we're not allowed to step out off, the sidewalk the way we used to be able to. Everybody's watching. You have social media. I certainly think people need to be very careful with their social media. I always advise people to, it's not about being a part, it's not about showing yourself going to parties. It is a medium that can work for you. So, use it to connect and be a nice person and do the work, get out there, be an intern, go and work on a film set, go do, COVID compliance and get somewhere on a set. Just get out there. I always say to people, if I don't have an ego about what I do every day, I mean, if I see somebody needs a cup of coffee and there's nobody around, I'll go get the goddamn fucking coffee. Do you need a water, Nicole? I'll get you the water. Keep your eyes open and serve those around you. Don't always be thinking about yourself. I don't think I answered the question, but whatever.
I think it's a great life lesson. I think it's a great life lesson.
Yeah, it's like, don't,
That is a career lesson.
get out of your own skin. Think out, don't be thinking, what are they thinking of me? What am I doing here? Well, how am I going to further myself? You have to think you have to think more macro than that. How am I going to serve this moment? How am I going to serve this film? How can I serve the person who's employing me? If you work as an assistant, I've been everybody's bitch. What can I say?
We have a question here from Pietro Barba. Pietro, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What is your question for Hilary?
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Hilary, for being here. It's a pleasure. My question would be, what would you look for in a new not aspiring, but in a new director, and especially in pitching himself, herself, what would be the things that would make you trust, either believe in him, her?
Well, listen, the work that we do is very emotional. It's a connection. There's a lot of people who will reach out to me and I'm like, you know what? I just don't vibe with you. You don't, if you really thought about it, we're not the right match. It's very much about chemistry between each other. And, in terms of a new director, are you a writer director? Do you have a piece of material? Do you have a short film? Do you have a student film? Do you have something that I can see? Let's get to know each other. Let's see if there's the possibility of a journey. I carry you on my back for a while and then you carry me on your back. And that's kind of the simpatico. I have young people who I've worked with, a couple of crappy movies that I've made with people. And, they maybe didn't turn out the way I hoped to, but they're lifelong relationships. And, that's really part of it. Find your people, find your, it's chemistry. It's in the ether. You really can't say. I've tried to go after directors and it just, I'm like, oh, I saw that movie. I really think it's great. I call up the phone. I call them. They can't be bothered with me. And vice versa. So it's really chemistry. Do I look for one thing? No. When people say, what do you want to produce? I don't fucking know. I want to do, it's people, it's the simpatico that I feel, the filmmaker, that I want to go on that long, painful journey with them. And hopefully we can make money. And hopefully we can get a movie made and have laughs along the road. The sourpuss, go fuck yourself. Did I answer?
That was great. Thank you.
Not on your set. Yes.
Yeah. No sourpusses, honey. These kids don't even know what a sourpuss is, Tova. It's like such an antiquated word. I can't believe it. Oh God, these millennials. All right.
We have a question here from Kimberly. Kimberly, we've enabled you to unmute your microphone. What is your question for Hilary?
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi there. Fabulous film, and definitely my fingers are crossed for Andra Day.
Yes. Can't say that. I'm not, it's like, I have to be careful, but I hope the fuck she wins.
So do I. I was wondering how many projects you usually work on at once. You want to have some financial gain. You're also working on passion projects. So how do you figure out how many is too much?
I sometimes I go, oh my God, I forgot about that project for a day or two. I have something right now that may just come to fruition that the director and I have been playing around with for literally, we just attached an actor and he said, you sent this to me 7 years ago. I'm like, that's impossible. It's been 7 years. And then we did the math and it had been 7 years. Listen, I'm an independent producer in another era, maybe an era past or an era forward. I would have an office at a studio and a development executive and 2 assistants and money to option material and buy books and all the things that I thought I would have as a young producer when I first started. And that is not the case. I sit, in my house and try to, just keep grinding things forward. So I can't even, Kimberly, what was the question again?
So how do you find that happy medium and tackle how many projects you're working on at once? Do you ever limit yourself?
I can't limit myself because you never really know if anything's going to happen. I mean, right now, I have 4 projects, all of which are acting like they're going to go in the late summer and fall. I mean, all 4 of them. And I'm just juggling them all. There's no way that if they all went, I could be on all sets, but I'm juggling them all and, hoping that, 1 or 2 of them will happen and hoping that praying to God that I actually have a fucking movie to go and to do. And the likelihood of all 4 going is extremely unlikely. And I would be thrilled if 2 of them actually went and I was able to, straddle that. So, I always say I need to push myself as well, really just keep driving and driving and driving. And, listen, the film business is in a terrible state, the real film business, it is mutate or die right now. It is think about streamers, think about, budgets are very limited. And, he who has he who writes the check is the God, and that's just the way it is. So it's just about putting one foot in front of the other. So I don't limit myself in answer to your question. I think right now I have 6 things that I'm juggling in the hopes that maybe one will go.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I answered it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Tova, I know that you have a couple questions before we wrap up, so I'll go ahead and throw it back to you.
Well, I had a lot of questions, but I think a lot of them were answered. I have one question that I'm really curious about, because everything that I knew about Billie Holiday was really about, an amazing singer, really. And
didn't know she was civil rights. You didn't know she essentially was one of the early civil rights activists.
That's it. And I knew about her drug use, but I didn't know about that. And the Strange Fruit song, every time it was on, and
written by a nice Jew
exactly, a school teacher.
Yeah.
A school teacher. How did that song get to Billie Holiday? It looks like he was so on the left field someplace, and she was already, an accomplished singer. So I'm just curious if you know how it came together, because I read about it and it wasn't quite clear how it got to her.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to have to ask that question and really get back to you about the exact specific, but I think that the song was being sung, in the South particularly, which obviously for those of, I don't know if people have all seen the movie, but Strange Fruit is an anthem about lynchings. And you have to really listen to the words, strange fruit, a hanging. Well, of course, it's bodies hanging from the trees. It's just absolutely extraordinary. And the way Billie Holiday and Andra Day sings it is just, you hear, that's the talent of these 2 artists, that you hear and understand every single word. So I think it was in the, infrastructure in the ozone. And as you see in the movie, she had about the most disenfranchised life, you can imagine. She was the daughter of a whore, prostituted at 12, a drug addict for almost her entire life. Somebody who by sheer talent raised herself, and by this fact that she was a tortured soul, destroyed herself in the same way. And, I think that it was an anthem of the South at that time. But that's, I don't have the exact answer, but I'll try to find out.
Yeah. No, but it's amazing. I mean, every time she sang that song, it's just like chills. And you can imagine, talk about strange fruit and see the people hanging from the tree.
Well, there's a moment in the film, for those of you who haven't seen it, where she comes upon a lynching. And it's really an extraordinarily visual moment. It's so funny because there are people who are like, well, that's just not clear. I'm like, that's the art of it, darling. That's where Lee Daniels, who takes you on this extraordinary journey that may not make sense, but makes so much sense having you understand what's actually going on. And, you know, the pain, the drug addiction, the racism as a woman, you know, love, death, hate, all of it is wrapped up in, you know, right there. And that was extraordinary.
And it's also relevant right now. And also that you know, the relentless pursuit of her by the federal authorities, it's like unbelievable, unbelievable. So it really comes to life, and it just makes the movie very, very relevant to our time. And I want to thank the always relevant Hilary Shor to really come up here and giving of her time, which is very, very limited because she's trying to get movies made. She has all those fun people that want to take her time. And she instead really came and here to give advice and to help you students. So please give her all a round of applause, even though she can't hear it. And we want to thank you so much.
I always love coming and talking to your students. I will do it at any time. I think it's a wonderful program that you have. And, you know, as I said at the beginning, you need to have your hearts and your minds open to make it in this business. And there are many different versions of what we call making it. It's very relative, and it's be true to yourself, walk in your own skin, and that will get you through.
Thank you. And I just want to tell you that usually, because I'm looking at people, usually people come in and they drift off. Everybody stayed for the whole time for you.
Thank you, darlings. Thank you for staying.
Thank you so much. We'll see you again and very soon. And good luck at the Oscar.
All right, everybody, fingers crossed for Andra Day. She deserves it all. She's an extraordinary talent. May you all be as lucky as I am to get to work with those kind of people. All right. Bye, guys.